Hello everybody and welcome back to Typical City. We're into must-win territory right now as Manchester City fans. We have to win against Aston Villa. A huge game of importance. There's no denying that. Manchester City versus Aston Villa at the Etihad Stadium. 8:15 kickoff in the UK, that is. And I will be doing a watch-along, of course, so come and join me for that one. What a game of football this proposes to be, with Aston Villa sitting in fourth, chasing down Champions League football. Manchester City chasing down Liverpool and Arsenal for a Premier League title, a fourth in a row, which seems to have split the fan base in truth. The following result after the Arsenal draw 0-0, was it a good point? Was it a bad point? A lot of that discussion came up and a lot of City fans has gone two different ways. One in column A and one in column B. Column A being, yeah, we can still do it. There's no reason not to believe in this Manchester City side. Column B, we're done. Title's over. Sell Erling Haaland. Things like that. Some outrageous state. Those types of fans, they get weeded out eventually. They're the type of fans that in the classic horror movies, at the beginning of a horror movie, they're giving it all that. The loudmouth joker, the loudest one in the room that you can't concentrate on the real problems because they're giving it all that. And then halfway into the movie, they get eaten. They're the first ones killed. And then by the end of the movie, you've got the real survivors left, the ones that can actually crack on with business and get on with what really matters, because the loudmouths have fucked off and they're dead now. That's them, Which column are you in? Are you the giving up type? Are you the type to stick by this team that won a treble last year against all the odds as well? Even in games against this particular football team we're going up against, Aston Villa 2 years ago, Ilkay Gundogan coming on the pitch 2-0 down against Aston Villa at home. Against all the odds, we win that Premier League title. We've done this, Blues. We've done this before. We're talking about 3 points behind Liverpool. And if we go and beat Aston Villa, we go and beat them, they play the day after, so pressure is on to Liverpool, and we'll be on the same points when they play Sheffield United. I think the fixture congestion and the order of the fixtures is something City fans are not really taking into consideration as well. Who plays first, who plays second. Obviously, the fixtures themselves, when you look at Arsenal versus Luton, Sheffield United against Liverpool, or the other way around, rather, with it being played at Anfield. I mean, the concern there is the goal difference is going to get even bigger. Undoubtedly so, really. You can't expect anything other than an Arsenal win and anything other than a Liverpool win. We just got to do our job. And it's one of the hardest. And full well those title rivals, Arsenal fans, Liverpool fans, they will be looking at this Villa game and going, that's a banana skin, a big banana skin, a real problem for this Manchester City side. And I'm in agreement with them. It is a problem. This is a really difficult game. But win it, what does that do to them? Because right now the narrative is very positive around Arsenal. It's all very supportive of Arsenal and Liverpool. They've gone top, understandably so. The narrative is very positive around them. But it's all very doom and gloom around Manchester City, like we're done, we're finished. We beat Aston Villa. The light bulb will go ping in their fuzzy little brains will suddenly realise, hang on a minute, they're not going away. We lose or even draw this game, yeah, it starts to look an uphill task that's just not achievable at that point. You drop any more points this game into the season, this far into the season rather, with it being Liverpool and Arsenal, you're chasing down 2 unbelievable Premier League juggernauts that we're chasing down. Us being a juggernaut in ourselves, and we know what we're doing, of course, but we have to factor in the realistic aspect of chasing down both Liverpool and Arsenal will be a near impossible task if we were to drop more points. I don't feel like we will, though, because, as much as Villa, we talk about Manchester City being undefeated in 23 games, which is an achievement of ridiculous proportions. Manchester City are doing incredible things this season, considering, how bad it feels right now. All of the City, well, not all of them, a small minority of City fans seem to think it's all doom and gloom and let's all cry ourselves to sleep at night because we're sitting in third, 3 points behind Liverpool. Boo-hoo. Crack on with it. Let's get on with it, Blues. We can still do this. I don't see why we don't need to believe, the likeliness of winning a treble, let's be realistic, yeah, slim, incredibly slim. But, 23 games undefeated is incredible from a Manchester City point of view, but we're going up against an Aston Villa side that are undefeated away from home in 2024, 5 clean sheets in the process Aston Villa have got away from home in those undefeated games away from Villa Park. It's going to be a really difficult game. It really is. And they got off to such a fantastic start to the season as well. Villa now being where they are, a lot of that hinged on how successful the start of their season was. blowing teams away. We go back to our undefeated run of 23 games unbeaten. The last team we lost to, this lot. So we're in for a game, but they're not the same outfit when we played them. I still feel like there's a threat there. There's a massive threat. Speed as well. Leon Bailey, Moussa Diaby, Morgan Rogers as well has started to find himself in the starting 11 for Aston Villa. They've got pace. They've got pace. They've also got quite a few injuries and suspensions that I'll get onto shortly as well. But it's a mixed Aston Villa that you're going up against right now. They beat Wolves 2-0. It was an even game. Before the international break, 1-1 to West Ham. A very even game. They got spanked 4-0 by Spurs. And then they go and spank Ajax 4-0 themselves. Both games had a red card involved on the losing side, which probably had a lot to do with those goals going in the end. But really, it's a very mixed outfit, Aston Villa. You throw in the fact that they've got numerous big key players that are injured, and Manchester City have got, our front power, our attacking power, the front players, the final third players are all there, ready, raring to go. Whether they're in form or not, they're fit at least. Defensively we've got problems, but Villa have got problems all over the pitch right now from an injury point of view. So if we can't beat this Villa side, as much as they need respecting Aston Villa, they're still, this is not the same Aston Villa that we went up against. And considering how many injuries that we had with no Rodri and no De Bruyne going away to Villa Park, Rico Lewis played in that game at Villa Park and he struggled. He's going to have to turn that around and maybe use that as a bit of fuel to reignite a better performance, because the likeliness is he's going to be playing again in that midfield for Manchester City. So it's going to be a massive game, massive game. Arsenal play 45 minutes before Manchester City. They kick off, so we'll know by half-time, or the game with Arsenal and Luton, they'll probably be 2 or 3-0 up, knowing Arsenal and the way they're playing and the way Luton, doing all right, Luton, not too bad, but, they're relegation battling outfit, so you expect Arsenal to be in the lead by half-time. City, the players will know that. They'll go in, they'll start the game against Aston Villa, knowing they've got to win the game because Arsenal are winning. The pressure then goes on to Liverpool, who play the following day against the whipping boys of the Premier League, Sheffield United. So we get through this, though. You look at the next group of fixtures with Palace away. We play first. We can go joint top. If we win this game, we can start the Premier League weekend coming up after this section of fixtures. We can play this weekend away to Palace, beat Palace, and away we go, and then it's over to you, Liverpool, see what you've got, and Arsenal, see what you've got. They're playing Brighton away as well. That's a really difficult game for Arsenal. So what order the fixtures take place is going to be a really big factor in this season, and it's a disadvantage to Liverpool, and both Arsenal and Liverpool at the weekend, so we'll have to wait and see. But in terms of the team news, Villa's huge team news, Ollie Watkins. We're talking about 16 Premier League goals. The second joint top goal scorer in the Premier League behind Erling Haaland. That player that everyone wants to sell. The top goal scorer in the Premier League. Some City fans want to sell him immediately. I agree, he needs a rest. I'm not sure he'll get one. I think Pep will trust him for this game. I think he'll play. I do believe that. I don't agree with it. I personally think Alvarez deserves to start this game. I would like to see Alvarez start up top. I don't think it's going to happen, though. I don't think Pep will do that. But to go as far the other way as sell Erling Haaland is just mind-blowing to me, and it's just, mate, it's just scary how immature some of our fans can actually be. Frightening. Long-term absentees from Aston Villa's point of view is Boubacar Kamara, who would definitely be playing in this game as a defensive midfielder alongside Douglas Luiz as well, a quality player that's been out for quite some time. Buendia and Tyrone Mings are the other two long-term absentees. Matty Cash picked up an injury during the international break. And speaking of the international break, in that position that he would play in as well, right back for Aston Villa, Ezri Konsa stepped up to the plate during the international break, and he got himself an England debut, as well as scoring against Wolves at the weekend as well. So Ezri Konsa stepping up for in the absence of Matty Cash. So there's not really much of a loss there. And the other player that's a huge loss, is the final game of his suspension, John McGinn, who picked up that red card against Spurs earlier on in the season. He is suspended, and he's the nucleus, he's the epicenter of Aston Villa's midfield, which I think will be a huge blow for them. In terms of City's team news, Ederson he was in training before the Arsenal game, which is crazy to me. I don't know what was going on there, but there was a real indication that he was going to start against Arsenal, then suddenly not going to start. And Pep said just before the Arsenal game, Ederson's not even close. So that to me suggests he's probably out for this game as well, which is a blow, but Ortega did really well, so I'm not too concerned in the goalkeeping department. Walker is reportedly still out as well, which is a bit of a shame because of the speed in particular. We're going up against Morgan Rogers and Leon Bailey, Moussa Diaby, the speed that they're going to have on the counter-attack. I like to think Kyle Walker would nullify some of that. We don't have that option, so that's a threat that we need to look out for. And there's no news on Nathan Ake, so I'm going to assume he's out as well, considering it was only 3 days ago that he walked off in the 27th minute against Arsenal with what looked to be like it was grabbing his hamstring. So I don't know how serious it is. We haven't heard anything. I'm doing this preview before Pep's pre-match press conference. So we have to wait and see on that one. Predicted starting 11 from a Manchester City and Aston Villa point of view. Unai Emery and Pep Guardiola, both managers, love to make huge amount of changes. There's very little consistency in the starting 11s between these two sides, so I'm going to do my best. City's hands have kind of been forced a little bit, so let's start with Manchester City. I'm going to go with Ortega in goal. And that back, I say back four, it's not going to be a back four, but on paper it will be. Josko Gvardiol, man of the match performance against Arsenal. I thought he was really, really good. Manuel Akanji in the middle with Ruben Diaz, and then Rico Lewis, who I don't really consider to be much of a right back. He's starting to look more and more like a midfielder every time I see him, but he'll probably be playing in midfield as well. But on paper, I'm putting him as a right back because out of possession when we lose the ball, likeliness is he's going to have to drop into defence and help out down that right-hand side. In front of the back four, it's going to be Rodri, who's been absolutely sensational for Manchester City throughout this entire season. That man is going to get us a trophy. I said it in my player ratings after the Arsenal game, and I stick by it. I think he's going to single-handedly win us a trophy this season. In front of them, I'm going to go with Kevin De Bruyne, and Phil Foden I'm going for in the middle this time, with Bernardo Silva on the right, and I'm going to go for Jack Grealish on the left. And then everyone will likely, most people would like to see Julian Alvarez. I personally would like to see Julian Alvarez start this game. He may well start this game. This is a prediction. People need to understand the difference between what I want, but between what I want and what I think Pep will do. Do you know what I mean? And I think Pep will start Erling Haaland. I hope he starts Alvarez because I feel like he deserves it, you know, and I feel like Haaland deserves a bit of a rest. You know, give something else for the Aston Villa, a new dynamic for Aston Villa's defence to worry about. Because it'll throw a spanner in their works. It will. You know, if they don't see Haaland on the team sheet, their two centre-backs, Diogo Carlos and who else is playing? Pau Torres, of course. They'll be looking at that team sheet and going, whoa, Alvarez is playing. What do we do now? We knew what our game plan was. We were going to manhandle and try to bully Erling Haaland out of the game. Now what do we do? But I do think he's going to start Haaland up front. Now, Aston Villa, their team news is a lot to be expected, really, with the injuries that they're suffering and the suspension to John McGinn as well, but they do like to move him around. Alex Moreno's been playing really well at left-back lately. Been keeping Lucas Digne on the bench, which is not an easy feat because I think Lucas Digne is a really good player, so either way, they've got two decent left-backs to choose from there. Ezri Konsa, who's showing real promise coming down the right backside for England and Aston Villa lately. Diogo Carlos and Pau Torres. Pau Torres is looking better and better every time I see him, by the way, and he's got a goal threat. He's got an eye for a goal as well, Pau Torres. Come forwards for set pieces. Hasn't got that many goals to actually speak of, but he gets on the end of set pieces quite well. He's a big guy. In front of them, Douglas Luiz, if I can find him. Where are you, mate? What a player he is. Rumours of City are still keeping an eye on him, you know, bringing him back to the club, a club that he spent some time in our academy with. And I'm going to go with Youri Tielemans as a two-double pivot defensive midfielder. Now, Youri Tielemans is quite underrated as a workhorse, you know what I mean? His ability to look after the defensive side of the game. Youri Tielemans is incredibly creative. He can score wonder goals. He's a number 8. He's a box-to-box player, and I feel like he might have to do a lot more defending than he's used to doing in this particular game, and I think he might play that way as well in defensive midfield alongside Douglas Luiz. I'm going to centralise Moussa Diaby, who can play there behind the striker. Moussa Diaby's played on the right, he's played on the left. I have a feeling he might tuck him in that number 10 role just behind the centre forward. On the right, Leon Bailey, who's been absolutely lethal. You know, he's such a dangerous, dangerous player, he is. And Morgan Rogers on the left, the new introduction, started 4 out of the last 5 games for Aston Villa. So he's been a new introduction to their squad, to their team, starting 11 team at least, and he's been playing really well. Up front, if there's no Ollie Watkins, then it's the big 20-year-old Colombian Jon Duran, who has got 264 minutes to his name and 2 Premier League goals. So there is a little bit of inexperience there. He's got 16 appearances, most of which came off the bench. But it's good news for City because there's no John McGinn, there's no Ollie Watkins, so that threat, the strength of their midfield is missing, and the goal threat of Ollie Watkins is missing from this game. So we don't really have excuses in this game, even though we've got a few of our own in defence injury-wise. Nathan Ake's out and Kyle Walker. If John Stones could play, I'm not convinced he would play in this game. If he does, that's great news. I've gone for Rico Lewis because I feel like Pep's going to wrap up John Stones, but if he does, I would take Rico Lewis out of this team and put John Stones in. That would be my preference, and have him in defensive midfield. If that's the case, then I feel even more strongly that we are going to win this game. And send a message, come on Blues, let's get behind them. I'm sick of it. It scares me how quick some fans are just so easily to turn on this team. I get Arsenal fans and I get Liverpool fans and United fans. I get them lot turning on their teams. You've got no excuse as a City fan. We've been spoiled rotten. Spoiled rotten. The things that this football team has done for you as a fan, they're giving us the ability to celebrate things most fans can only dream of. Some don't even dream of it because it's just too unrealistic for most fans to even dream of the things that Manchester City have achieved. And yet you turn your back on them less than a year later after they achieved the impossible. Some of you are turning your back on this side. You're a disgrace, some of you. You are a disgrace. And if you're offended by what I'm saying, then you know who I'm talking about. You. If you're sticking behind this side, there's nothing wrong with saying, the titles looks unrealistic. That's not the point. Some of you are saying, it's gone. We're winning nothing. You can forget any trophy this season. Sell Erling Haaland. Pep, he's got it all wrong. And there's nothing wrong with questioning Pep Guardiola, but there's everything wrong with turning your back on this team, saying along the lines of they're not going to win anything and just giving up. Just down-toolsing and giving up. You're a disgrace. And if you're one of them, you know who I'm talking about. Blues, let's get behind this team. I'm going to go and watch the rest of this Netflix documentary. That's motivation. If that's motivation, go and watch that. Remind yourselves of what this team can do. Come on, City. We're going to do him. I will be doing a watch-along just as a reminder. Come and join me for that one. It's going to be a big game. Huge game of importance. 8:15 kickoff in the UK. I'm going to go 2-0. I feel like we can keep another clean sheet. Come on, City, let's do this. Get your comments in below. I want to hear your thoughts on this. Do you believe? Are you one of them who's offended? Then get in the comments and tell me how wrong I am, that we're going to win nothing. If you are one of them, then you're not a real fan as far as I'm concerned. I'm not interested really in what you have to say. But by all means, get in the comments and write some waffle. By all means. City fans, get behind the team. Come on, like and subscribe to Typical City, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is Typical City now, holding up silver.